your moral intuition, I think, you argue with me, I'm sure you will, runs into limitations. If you think about more complex examples. So a more complex example might be let's say a large-scale factory that employs 400 people, and it's producing an industrial product, and it's generating all kinds of environmental crap, and and has workers that are working there. Who should get the product in that case? The workers? The person who owns the factory? Somebody else?
I mean, are you referring to the Industrial Revolution or unions or what?
No, it's just referring to, it's to take a factory. Assume a factory.
Well, in capitalist society, the owner, but now that we're implementing the environmental thing, then it should be the state's responsibility to make sure that they're not harming the environment and give them regulations and stuff.
Okay, so the capitalist society, you say the owner gets it?
Yeah.
Okay, how does that work?
He had to go through a lot to, I guess, establish his business.
He had to go through a lot to establish his business. Like what?
It doesn't come out of like nowhere.
It doesn't come out of nowhere?
Yeah, you see everybody trying to reach the American dream. So they have to go through struggles and stuff to become like successful.
Okay. Is that how it happens? Is that the typical person who owns a factory, somebody who's like worked up their way up?
Yeah.
You're born with certain sets of social capital, and that tends to dictate your success in life. And it's just the unlikely case that you reach the American dream.
All right. Is there? Tell me your name again.
Luke?
Yeah, Luke. We're calling Luke the Libertarian here. Okay. I don't know if you're really a libertarian, but here's a question I want to ask. What's your name?
Jamie.
Okay. So Jamie says the rules set up, the capitalist gets it. Okay. Is there contradiction between that ideal justice and the idea that the person who makes the flute should get the flute?
Can you repeat that again? So
Okay.
you're saying is what the
Are
difference is between-
they the same ideal of justice in both cases? In one case, you say the owner of the factory
I mean, it's
is entitled to it. In the other case, it's the person who does the work is entitled to it. Are those the same cases?
no, they're more complex.
The work, so there's a difference? There's different principles?
Yeah, there's different principles.
Okay.
Because the owner had to like organize the workers. He's responsible for who's gonna get the job. And then in a way, he's actually giving the workers like income and
Okay.
allowing them to be successful.
He's giving the workers income on them to be successful. Are the workers giving him something?
Yeah, they're giving him something as well.
So it's a reciprocal
yeah, exactly.
exchange?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And should the owner of the factory and the workers themselves, should they have to pay taxes, or is that theft?
They should have to pay taxes.
Okay, why?
Because the government is responsible for like basic needs like the police force, firemen, all those other institutions that help us out. So
Okay.
we have to pay those people for their services. So that's kind of reciprocal too, I guess.
All right, good, all right. I buy that. People buy that. That's an argument for why taxation can be just. It's not an argument for taxation, or all taxation is always just. It's for.
What kind of taxation?
He said his argument is this, is
You know,
that
income
the government provides services which allow the factory to exist. For instance, if there were no police, the barbarians would come and take away the factory, right? Something like that. If there were no roads, it'd be hard to get goods in and out of the factory.
But what kind of tax are you talking about?
We could say a tax on profit.
Okay, so an income tax? Is it federal? Is it state? I mean, what?
This is called a federal corporate tax. Tax on corporate earnings. It's pretty standard.
so you're saying a tax on how well the company does?
Yeah, that would be the example. It doesn't have to be that way. You could also tax people at the income level instead. And so why are you sort of sighing?
Well, I don't know, I just disagree with that, and I feel like every time I disagree with whatever you say, you make fun of it.
No. I really appreciate your being here, because you're like a model justice student. Because A, you're doing what these people at Richmond don't do, and it's the part of justice, is you're arguing with the professor, which is good. And B, the substance of what you're saying is important. And so I'm responding this way to try to bring out possible areas where people are going to disagree, right? So stick to your guns until I convince you.
Okay.
If I don't convince you, then still stick to your guns, right? Fair enough? Deal? Okay. So, but tell me why you disagree the taxation would be necessary in that case.
I feel like that kind of taxation would be immoral. Again, for the same reason that taking the flute away from the kid who made it would be immoral. I mean, I feel like while one is more complex, they still come down to the same foundation, which is that you're stealing from people what they produced.
Okay. So the argument is, so all taxation is stealing?
No, I'm not saying all taxation is stealing. I'm saying taxation based off of what you produce.
Taxation based on what you produce. So you say if you tax taxation on some other basis, it would be okay. So like per capita or something like that.
I mean, I think on a small scale, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to argue or think about why taxation based on what you produce might be legitimate? So an example would be giant corporation that makes $20 billion profit a year would pay more in taxes than a small store that makes $10,000 profit. That would be a corporate tax.
I mean, can we also
rate.
assume that the agency responsible for collecting and distributing the tax money is inefficient? I mean, if you're going to assume that you're comparing a $20 billion corporation to a small business, like, you might as well go all the way.
Go all the way and assume
that, for example, a fraction of every dollar collected in taxes actually gets to where it needs to go.
well, let's not worry about the efficiency.
Why not? I mean, it's inherent in.
Well, because the question on the table is whether it's just to have a tax in the first place, and the allocation and whether the best way to do that would be a separate question. So I'll keep the question separate. It's a legitimate question. I agree, it's a legitimate question, but it's not the one on the table right this second.
I mean, I would argue that the big company should pay more tax because they're using more resources. I mean, a big factory that's spread out over a large area will use more electricity, use more water, probably require a greater amount of security from a police force, have the possibility of more amount of fire, need more fire service than a small neighborhood store. So because you're using more resources, then you should be appropriately taxed more to acquire those resources.
I would agree with that.
Okay. So then what's the problem with having a taxation based on income?
Because there's a difference between resources that you use and product you produce.
Okay. So, that's an interesting distinction. So, how would you measure it? How would you measure? It could be that what happens is that we have a tax on production as a proxy for
I mean, for
a
example,
tax on resources because it's the best way, available way to
For
measure.
example, if
It could be
you-
a more precise way. You have an idea?
well, yeah, I mean, if you use, let's say, for example, car companies, and one car company uses the same amount of resources or less resources than another car company, but produces more, you're saying that car company that produces more should be taxed more because they're being more efficient with their resources?
Possibly. That would be one way.
That doesn't seem unjust.
I don't know. I'm not going to judge right now. What do you think? Do you have a response to that?